To other news now, a senior Russian military officer was killed when a car bomb exploded just outside Moscow Friday. Russia's top criminal investigation agency identified him as General Yaroslav Moskalik, a deputy head of the main operational department in the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces. For now, investigators still have yet to name any possible suspects or clear motives. And for the second time this month, then, Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is meeting with Vladimir Putin. Now, in total, this is his fourth meeting with the Russian president for another round of ceasefire talks, with both the Kremlin and the White House previously expressing optimism that a peace deal could be within reach. On Thursday, the Russian foreign minister claimed that Moscow is indeed ready to come to an agreement, though he acknowledged some challenges remain.
The President of the United States believes, and I think rightly so, that we are moving in the right direction. The statement by the President mentions a deal, and we are ready to reach a deal, but there are still some specific points, elements of this deal which need to be fine-tuned.
Well, speaking of some specific points that could be fine-tuned, now in an interview with Time magazine published on Friday, Donald Trump declared unilaterally that, quote, Crimea will stay with Russia, offering then some clues, of course, as to what the White House expects to see in any possible peace deal. For more on this, France 24's international affairs commentator Douglas Herbert joins me on set. Hi, Doug. So if you were a fly on the wall, what do you think you would expect to be happening? What's being said possibly in this meeting between Witkoff and Vladimir Putin?
Well, put it this way. If I'm a Ukrainian, if I'm a European looking at this meeting, it sums up all of my worst fears and worst-case scenarios. What you have essentially here is Steve Witkoff, a golfing buddy of Donald Trump, a man with zero foreign policy credentials, being sent, and this is the way a lot of Ukrainians will see it, a lot of Europeans will see it, the fear scenario, being sent by essentially a thuggish and extortionate president, a president who is approaching his 100 days in office, who is now desperate to do what he has not been able to do as he campaigned on ending this war on day one. Then it became 100 days. His 100 days is approaching. He is desperate to pull off a deal, to have something to show for peace before that 100 days. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize as well. There's a little bit of the context here. The reason that this meeting strikes a lot of fear and apprehension into the hearts of the vast majority of Ukraine and its allies right now is because you have a man who has literally parroted most of the talking points, if not almost all of the Kremlin's talking points on this war, namely the fact that Russia is not the aggressor, Ukraine is, echoing what Donald Trump has said in recent days, actually paradoxically blaming Ukraine for somehow perpetuating a war that it did not start in the first place. Even this notion, this sort of basic fundamental notion that Ukraine is a false country, it doesn't really exist. This has also been a prominent talking point of Putin, who solely, single-handedly, it seems, has the broad perspective on history that no one else seems to understand. So Ukraine is not a country. So you have sitting at a table with apparently one other American representative, and then Putin is with two others, his senior foreign policy advisor, and also his senior investment envoy, Kirill Dmitriev. You have them sitting around this table, and there's a sense that Witkoff is doing a fool's errand here. He's going to be a dupe, and he's going to be he's no match for Putin when it comes to the ability to manipulate, to exploit, and knowing basically that this is an administration that it can easily sway to its talking points it already has. So yeah, the Ukrainians are very scared this meeting is they keep saying going into this, we think we're going to be at a deal. Donald Trump saying we're reaching a deal very soon. They fear that this meeting is going to basically put the nails in the coffin of an agreement that Ukraine has said all along amounts to nothing but capitulation or surrender, will amount to exploitation of their natural resources, and will basically be throwing multiple strategic wins to Putin, multiple concessions to Putin, and really asking nothing or very little of Russian return, while making it look like they're asking a lot of Russian return. Those are the fears at this meeting. We don't know what they're saying.
Well, something that we do know is, of course, that Donald Trump wants something to show for his first 100 days in office, something that he can, of course, take credit for. So what do you think that Ukraine is going to counter with today?
Well, what Ukraine has already been countering with, the basic line, the narrative from Ukraine has been, look, guys, 45 days ago, on March 11th, we jointly with the United States, called for the immediate implementation of a full 30-day ceasefire, a ceasefire in the skies, on the seas, and on the front lines. That is yet to happen. It says that we even called for extending Putin's what they see as a very cynical Easter truce, a truce which was a truce in name only. Ukraine called, okay, we see your bluff, Vladimir Putin. There a 30-hour truce. How about let's extend it? Let's make it 30 days. Let's sign on to the full thing. They didn't do that. From Ukraine's standpoint, Ukraine has tried to act in good faith, has called for that full ceasefire. Russia has rejected it every step of the way, not just dragging its feet, rejecting it outright. What Ukraine would like ultimately is a deal that it sees as lasting and durable. And the only way that that's possible from the perspective of Ukraine and the European allies right now, who are also closely watching this deal, is if it's a deal that does not amount to Ukrainian capitulation, that does not amount to simply handing over to Russia the territories it is illegally annexed. Yes, Crimea remains very much a red line. Ukraine also doesn't want to ultimately be bound by not being able to be sovereign over its own alliances, who it chooses to be allies with. Russia's indicated it would be open to the possibility of Ukraine eventually joining the EU, but it draws the line at NATO. That was one of the reasons that presumably Putin started this war, to prevent Ukraine from joining that NATO space, but so on and so forth. Ukraine wants a deal that essentially allows it not to have fought this war for naught, that allows it to come out saying it was able to defend its territorial integrity, defend its sovereignty, and not capitulate.
Douglas Herbert, we'll see if anything new comes out of this meeting then as we await the end. Thank you very much.